This meeting is being recorded.
All right, it looks like we have everybody in. Pete, did you have a couple words that you were going to say before we convened, or do you need me to convene first?
No, I do have a few things I'd like to say if I could. Can you see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay. And before we call the order, I just wanted to reach out to, or just check in with everybody here and give a quick update. First of all, there's been a lot of closures due to weather. Salem, all public office buildings are closed, so we're working remotely, and I think we've got a little bit of kind of slower connectivity issues. I'm probably going to turn my camera off just to make sure audio's better. Somebody else coming in the waiting room here. So really just a reminder to be safe, and we'll work as well as we can with our connectivity here. If there's power outages, we'll just try to log back in, but get as much done as we can today. But everybody be safe. And I know there's just a lot of disruption in everybody's schedules. So that's one thing. The other thing is I threw up this picture of Dr. Lamb and I, excuse me. We were at the Capitol yesterday presenting our agency budget to legislators. And as you know, the Capitol's under construction, so this was kind of as close as we could get to something scenic. But it was a good day. We met with some legislators down there. We presented our budget. Everything was very well received. I'll talk a little bit more about that during executive director's report, but I wanted to share that with everyone. And bear with me one more minute. I think this one. We ran into a lot of fun, interesting folks, and we ran into this group of Eugene High School students and their robotics team. And Dr. Lamb and I got to drive these little robots around. They were just there getting recognized for their accomplishments, but you never know what you're going to run into down the Capitol, and that's what we ran into yesterday. So it was a very good day, and the most importantly, the budget was well received and all that. But Dr. Lamb, do you have any words on that?
No, if anybody has an opportunity to ever go down to the Capitol building, it was very interesting and fun. Parking's a little bit crazy right now with the construction, but yeah, this was the highlight of my day, to get to play with some robots, and they were a lot of fun, and the high school students were a lot of fun as well.
Super, thanks. I just wanted to kind of share that. I'll talk a little bit more about the details, legislative presentations in the executive director's report. But that's all I've got. If you're ready to convene the meeting, Dr. Lamb, I turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. So it is 8:35. I'm going to call to order. The public session is scheduled to start at 8:30 and will continue to the end of business. Executive session closed to the public will follow and continue to the end of business. The board expects to come out of executive session and into public session for any purposes of voting on the cases discussed during executive session and any other applicable board business. I'll do roll call with staff and board members. And then after that, it looks like we have quite a few public members today that are joining us. We always appreciate our public members joining us. But I will do a roll call after that and a few comments about public interactions and comments. So bear with me as I go around the room. Executive Director Pete Burns, are you here?
Here. Thank you.
Thank you. Investigator Janine Holland.
I'm here. Hi.
Thank you. Investigator Bertina Graho.
Here.
Thank you. Inspector Ingrid Nye.
Here.
Thank you. Licensed Administrator Brooke Walker.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Reagan Borzak.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Allison Lamb is present. Dr. Brett Hamilton.
Here.
Thank you. Miss Natalie Mayer Williamson.
Here.
Thank you. Miss Karen Pate.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Katie Wallace.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Brian Wadika?
Here.
Thank you. And Dr. Max Rinaldi is excused today. I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. Staff and board members, thank you for roll call. I do reiterate what Executive Director Pete Burns said about if you need to go off camera. I know normally we try to encourage people to be on camera. However, if you do need to do that for the sake of audio today, we understand. We know people are working in alternative locations and sometimes the bandwidth is just not there. So before we go into welcoming our public members, I just wanted to remind the public members that comments are limited to 3 to 5 minutes, and scheduling that with the board prior to the meeting is always encouraged. Today, I would like to just go around and see who is here for public comment and hear your name. I apologize, there are several initials on here. So I might not use a name, I might have to use initials, but in order for us to accommodate all public members, we'll have to give individual time to present, and that will be based on how many public members there are here today. And it's designed for public participants to provide information to the board for further consideration and deliberation. It's not necessarily a public discussion of topics, so the board will hear public comments today, but will likely not be able to provide direct or immediate follow-up or exchange. So we'll go through the list of attendees and see who would like to introduce themselves and present something to the board today. And I'm just going to go around the room based on my screen in no particular order. So it looks like Julianne Bickstrom, welcome today. If you want to unmute and introduce yourself and tell us if you're here for public comment.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize. I've got a cold and my voice is not really operational. I'm a contract veterinarian with the Oregon Coast Aquarium, and so I am primarily interested in the update on certified euthanasia technicians.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us today, Dr.
Thank you.
Bickstrom. Hayden Schultz.
Hello, I'm here. Yeah, so today I just wanted to go over some proposed trying to improve the overall sorry, I have some notes here I'm going off of.
That's okay. You don't have to go through them right now. You can just introduce
okay.
yourself and then tell me if you're ready.
My name's Hayden. I just want to go over some improvements to the overall veterinary care in our state.
Okay, thank you. I have somebody by MK.
Yes.
Would you like to introduce yourself today? Or
Yes, thank you. I was trying to get my video going, but it's not going. My name is Melissa. I am here just to kind of get an idea of how an AVMA board meeting operates. And I also wanted to be here as a show of concern that Dr. Daniel Kohler is still operating at Companion Pet Clinic in Gresham after a 50-year record of animal and drug abuse.
Hey, Melissa, were you wanting to talk later, or was that?
No, I don't have anything necessarily new to bring to the table. I have been able to speak with Peter Burns via telephone a couple of times and via email. I just wanted to be here just kind of as a show that I am interested in, what AVMEB can do or not do. I don't know about Daniel Kohler. That's just why I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
MPC.
Howdy, I'm just attending this hearing. My name is Michael Clardy. I'm an attorney.
Great. Thank you very much. Glenn Kolb.
Good morning. Yes, Pete Burns invited me to talk about some veterinary bills up before the legislature.
Great. Thank you, Glenn. I believe we have you as a slotted time. So do you have any interest in any public comment in the public section?
I do not. No, slotted time of work. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Glenn. It looks like Whitney Holiday.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good morning. My name is Whitney Holiday, and I'm also here to show my concern about Dr. Daniel Kohler. I didn't have really any new information to present, but I do have a little like vague timeline to go over just with you guys and show my concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Helen Huang.
morning. Helen Huang from Governor's Office Executive Appointments and just listening in. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today, Helen. I believe that is all the public members that I see in the room. I would like to take an opportunity. I think there's one more person in here that hasn't been able to introduce themselves, Dr. Ryan Schultz.
Yeah, good morning. Ryan Schultz, the state veterinarian with the Oregon Department of Agriculture.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any public members that I missed by going around the room? Please unmute yourself right now and I'll take a head count for your public comment if you need to be included. Okay. It looks like we have two people that were interested in public comment. I'm going to limit it to the 5-minute max since that's since we can accommodate that today. And if we would like to start with Hayden Schultz, that would be great. If you'd like to unmute yourself, I'm going to mute myself, Hayden, in case my dogs bark in the background during your comment.
All right. Well, first off, thanks for taking the time and letting us comment on your session today. So what I wanted to bring up and
oh, sorry to interrupt. I just want to let board members know that I believe Mr. Schultz provided an email, and that's in your documents for this session. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Just want to let you know that what you sent, the board members have access to.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to go over, I understand the board is in charge of, regulating licenses, DEA licenses for veterinary practitioners, and just to have oversight of the entire veterinary aspect in our state. But I feel like we need to raise the bar to a greater standard of care. You could reference, for example, California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 2043. I can't remember what year that was introduced, but it established a pretty robust minimum standard for the highest level of animal care and welfare. It also creates greater accountability and transparency with the public. Keeps people accountable, and I'm also segueing into the case of Dr. Daniel Kohler because of all this. He should be a very familiar name to all of you in the board. He has had his license revoked time and time again, done jail time, and he still is being allowed to practice, which I'm not entirely understanding why it's almost like he can buy his way back in to practicing, and he still is doing the same thing. Just because somebody has done their jail time and paid the fines does not mean that their behavior is changing. And I can attest to that personally because my dog suffered greatly at the hands of this doctor just in 2023. And so, that got me kind of involved. There's a large group of us on Facebook that are trying to figure out if we can do anything about this issue, because I feel like the fact that he's, continuing to be allowed to practice and harm animals almost on a daily basis, I feel like the board is failing our community and the pets that we care about by allowing this guy to continue to practice. But anyway, I'm proposing again that, we update and create some better guidelines so that this kind of thing can't continue to happen in the future. Let me see, I have some notes here. I was kind of going off of greater transparency. That's part of that California CCR that was put into place, so that will allow the public to easily look up, criminal records and history of their veterinary technicians, which is not as easy to do in our state. And in the case of Dr. Kohler, this would allow people to, do a better background check on him before taking their animals into his care, if he's going to be allowed to still practice. It implements or, I would suggest implementing stricter guidelines for anesthesia monitoring, surgical protocols, sanitation procedures, all again to safeguard animal welfare. I think there needs to be better policies about the drugs that are being used in veterinary clinics. There's from 2006, there's a long court case that, I would hope that you guys would take the time to read over and look at that details a lot of this stuff, but I'm sure you're all familiar with it. But one of the things he was doing too was essentially trafficking drugs throughout his many franchise locations to fuel his own addiction, which then in turn ends up hurting animals because they're not getting their prescriptions that they're supposed to be having for surgeries. And then he's also injuring animals while being under the influence. For a period of time, he only held one single DEA license for his anesthesia medicine at one of his locations, and then used that to essentially traffic, all of his vet medications between his dozens of clinics that were under his care at that time. I could go on, but the point I'm getting to is that I think we need to, reference something like California Title 16, Section 2043 and establish a greater bare minimum of care in the state of Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. And I apologize. Did you say that you were veterinarian Schultz or Mr. Schultz? I just want to refer to
No, I am not a veterinarian, but my dog was severely injured by Dr. Daniel.
Thank you for speaking today, Mr. Hayden Schultz. Does any of the board members have any questions while we have Mr. Schultz? Remember, we're not discussing today, just a follow-up question if there was more information needed. Okay, thank you.
And I just want to follow up and say I really hope that you guys will take the time to look into this issue because it's really harming. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people have suffered at the hands of this guy. I hope you would take the time to look at the court cases, read through them, look at our Facebook group. It's called Companions for Justice. That's where many people are posting their firsthand experiences.
Thank you. I appreciate your comment today.
Dr. Lamb, this is Dr. Hamilton. Can I ask, did you file a complaint with the board in 23?
I apologize, Dr. Hamilton. We're not allowed to ask that question during public comment. It would just be Joanna, I can't hear you. Joanna, I still can't hear you. Sorry.
That's it, Joanna.
Thank you, everybody, for just holding tight for a second while we work out the little audio detail here. It looks like at this time, we'll just hold on any additional comment or question and move on to the next public interaction or comment that we had. And I believe that was Whitney Holiday. Are you still on the call, Whitney? Sorry, I know that there's been some technical difficulties this morning already.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. If you'd like to start your comment, we're going to start the 5-minute timer right now. And go ahead.
Thank you. Honorable members of the Oregon Veterinary Medical Examining Board, my name is Whitney Holiday. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. I come to you with a deep concern and an urgent plea for accountability regarding veterinarian Daniel G. Kohler, who I had an interaction with in 2023 with my dog as well. The evidence against him is overwhelming and it spans over 4 decades, showing a consistent pattern of negligence, abuse, and disregard for both animals and the law. I just wanted to present a rough timeline of events to emphasize the severity and persistence of his misconduct. So he first got his license to practice as a vet in Oregon and California in 1974. 3 years later, a California judge sentenced Kohler to 100 days in jail for brutalizing a dog and letting an unlicensed vet to perform a hysterectomy on a cat. In 1979, California revoked Kohler's license for animal cruelty and violating professional standards. In 2004, Portland attorney Susan Ford Burns filed a 79-page complaint with the veterinary board on the behalf of Kohler's former front office manager. The document accused Kohler of beating, kicking, and throwing cats and dogs. 2008 reports emerged that he was using drugs and falling asleep during surgeries, endangering the lives of animals in his care. 2010, around there, the OVMEB revoked his veterinary license after years of complaints and investigations into his conduct. Despite losing his license, he continued to involve himself in animal care in unauthorized ways. And November 2019, Dr. Kohler was once again a practicing veterinarian, and he was arrested in Beaverton, Oregon. He was indicted on 2 counts of first-degree aggravated animal abuse, indicating a repeated pattern of violence towards animals. Despite these multiple offenses, legal battles, and professional misconduct cases, Dr. Kohler remains a threat to animals and continues to have involvement in the field. The risk that he will continue harming animals is not hypothetical. It's proven through his history. His history reflects a disturbing and dangerous disregard for veterinary ethics and animal welfare. This is not a single case or a lapse in judgment. It's decades of abuse, deceit, and harm. I appreciate your time and attention to the ongoing concerns regarding Dr. Daniel G. Kohler. In the interest of transparency and public awareness, I respectfully ask the board to review our Facebook group, Companions for Justice. It's a dedicated group where affected pet owners and advocates have shared evidence, testimonies, and updates related to this case. Animal welfare should never be compromised by repeat offenders like Dr. Kohler, and this board has the power and the responsibility to protect the animals and uphold the integrity of the veterinary profession. And I ask that you exercise that power. Thank you for your time and taking this matter seriously.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Whitney Holiday.
Thank you.
I will take it back to Executive Director Pete Burns to see if there was any follow-up that we needed to do.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Lamb, and thank you to all the public participants who spoke today. And I want to say, although we can't ask about complaints and who filed complaints, that's strictly confidential. I've spoken to many of you. I've spoken to many people from the Facebook group, and I've tried to share what information we're allowed to share. But my response is, if you have a complaint against any licensee, that's where it starts. And so I encourage anyone that has a direct complaint, direct experience where they feel there's been violation of our rules, start with that complaint. You can reach out to me directly. You can file a complaint online. And as I've stated to everyone I've spoken to, every single complaint we receive is investigated thoroughly and presented to the board. And I think that's really all I can say in terms of any specific cases or anything. It all starts with those complaints. So, but I do appreciate everybody being here today. I've received information from folks, and I do appreciate the direct interaction. So any other questions, any other concerns, please reach out to me or go onto our website to file a complaint.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for those words. Also, thank you for the public members that spoke today and joined us. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss any additional public members that I may have miswritten down that they were to speak. If I did, please unmute yourself now. Thank you. I believe that concludes our public comment section for today. We can move forward with the consent agenda or for today's agenda and December 5th and 6th public meeting summary notes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from last month? I did just have a couple name spelling corrections on it that I've shared with staff, but is there any other comments about the minutes or today's agenda? Do I have a motion to approve today's agenda and the minutes from the summary last time?
I so move.
Dr. Wallace moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
That was Brian Wadika that second. All those in favor, Dr. Borzik?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Natalie Mayer Williamson?
Aye.
Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Katie Wallace?
Aye.
Brian Wadika?
Aye.
Motion passes. I believe that leads us up to item number 6, an update from the state veterinarian, Dr. Ryan Schultz. I did just want to postpone for a second. Looks like we've had somebody else join, and I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss introducing somebody, but we've surpassed the public comment window. So Mimi McCormick, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. It's my name McCormick. I am a compliance manager for Petco Total Care, and want to just sit in to see what the conversation is like around the different changes to permitting and everything.
Great. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So officially moving on to item 6, the update from the state veterinarian, Dr. Ryan Schultz. I'm going to mute myself, Ryan, while you take over the conversation.
Great, thank you. So Ryan Schultz, I'm the state veterinarian with the Department of Agriculture. So just a couple of hopefully fairly short updates today. First one is, I think as I've started off every update I've given since I've been giving updates, we continue to see cases of highly pathogenic avian influenza. We've seen kind of a shift. So we are still seeing seeing poultry cases at about the same pace we have all along. We had 3 new cases in small to medium sized flocks in January. We are also now starting to see an uptick in cases in cats. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, I think, is increased awareness. We know that cats are highly susceptible to this virus. We know that cases have been happening sporadically. I think it's just hasn't been well recognized of what the symptoms are and the risk profiles. The other big risk factor we've seen kind of arise here fairly recently, though, has been through the feeding of raw meat-based diets, particularly poultry-based diets. So we had a case in early December of a cat that unfortunately was euthanized after complications with severe infection and ended up testing positive for influenza. That resulted in a recall of a pet food that was manufactured here in Oregon. There have been several others across the country around that same time. There was a couple cases in LA County that were pretty highly publicized. There's been several in Colorado also. Since then, though, we also had a case of in a kitten that was in Washington County also that we believe was likely through exposure to wild waterfowl. That's really the other risk factor in these cases. And then we will be announcing, I think actually probably later today, 2 new cases that are from last week that are associated with another brand of raw pet food that is manufactured up in Washington. The Washington State Department of Agriculture is working with that company to initiate a recall on that food. And we've got several additional cases that we're investigating right now. We don't have any lab testing yet, but that are consistent symptoms and consistent exposures to that same pet food. So it's been kind of a concerning development. We have seen a significant increase in reporting of suspected cases in cats, going from maybe 1 or 2 a month to about 20 to 30 a week. Obviously, most of those are not ending up being positive, but we've been doing a lot of testing. One of the problems we have is in cats, the symptoms really just aren't well described. They're not well known. There's been such sporadic cases. And so even those cases that get reported to us that are not positive have really been helpful in kind of ascertaining what symptoms are we looking for and what are we not. The two big kind of symptom profiles we've been seeing have been neurologic disease, so it follows kind of a primary encephalitis, and then the other one ends up being kind of more of a respiratory pneumonia that will usually string along for about a week and then rapidly decompensate within a matter of hours. So we are still continuing to receive reports of those. We'll be doing some additional, we'll be putting out some press releases today and then doing some additional technical outreach to veterinarians as well, probably either today or tomorrow following that press release. So along those lines, we also, at the end of last month, were able to finalize our reportable disease rule update, which had been pending for a while and honestly got delayed by about a month just because we had been so busy with dealing with cases of reportable diseases. We hadn't been able to file the final paperwork. So that is finalized now. There's a couple of changes to it, but all of the changes on it were in response to pretty significant feedback we received over the last year from veterinarians. So we did an industry-wide survey late last winter, and which we got about 15% of licensed veterinarians actually responded on that. So we were pretty happy with the response rate we got. And then we held several focus groups in addition to that from veterinarians to really dig into more what is needed from the veterinary standpoint beyond just the disease control standpoint in those reportable diseases. So based on that feedback, there were a few diseases that were moved from monitored to immediately reportable. Those are predominantly equine respiratory diseases. So equine influenza, equine strangles, and then all strains of equine herpes virus were made immediately reportable. And then with influenzas, we had kind of a split that some influenzas were reportable, some were just monitored. We have made the shift now that all animal influenzas are now immediately reportable, mainly just in response to what we've been seeing over the last year, where it really doesn't matter what strain and what species, especially with this H5N1 strain we've been dealing with, it tends to jump species barriers. And so having specific species being different reportability just didn't make sense anymore. We have also added a number of diseases, particularly companion animal diseases, to our monitored list. Just as a reminder, the monitored lists are not ones that a veterinarian needs to contact our office. We don't collect specific owner information. It's really a limited report. It's within 15 days of lab confirmation. And the intent of that list is for endemic diseases that are of significant concern to an individual animal or an individual livestock operation. They're not ones that have a significant risk of widespread transmission. So those diseases, we've added several to the companion animal ones. We are working on kind of the phase 2 of that, which we had hoped to have in place, but just have had so many influenza cases going on. We haven't been able to complete it yet, but the end goal with those monitored diseases is really for those to be reported by labs. We just don't have the authority to mandate labs to report. We only have authority over veterinarians reporting. And so we included in those the reporting requirement for those that if a lab automatically reports, the veterinarian is exempt. And that's really the end goal. We don't want veterinarians having to report every single one of those cases. We are working with the major diagnostic labs right now. We're still kind of working through that process to get that reporting to be automated and to get it coming to us so that the majority of those diseases, when they are diagnosed by reference laboratory, do not have to be reported. We are also working, I'm hoping to have this part done in the next week or so, to have that data exposed, that the date of diagnosis or date of confirmation, the disease, the county of residence, and the species will all be, that's the extent of the information we really track. Those will all be made available through a data portal on our website so that veterinarians and as well as animal owners can look at that information, see what diseases of concern are being seen in any given area. We're going to start with just a data table as we're building the data behind it, because we have recently expanded that list. We're getting a lot of new diseases that don't have data prior to this last month. Once we have a couple months worth of data, we'll be able to build that out further into some interactive tables and mapping and some different things that way. So with that, I think that's the majority of our update for this month. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Schultz, for joining us today. Do any of the board members have any questions for Dr. Schultz while we have him still on the line? Executive Director Pete Burns.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Lamb. And thank you, Dr. Schultz. I really appreciate that. I know things are moving fast and furious these days. If you need anything from the board, just please reach out. I appreciate the partnership very much.
Thank you so much for taking time out today to join us, Dr. Schultz. We'll move on to number 7, Legislative and Regulatory Review 2025 with OVMA Executive Director Glenn Cole.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Dr. Lamb. So Pete invited me to kind of give an overview of what we're seeing at the legislative session this year. I mean, during the long session, approximately 3,000 bills are introduced and roughly 750 are actually enacted into law. Our lobbyists give us kind of a weekly activity report so we can kind of track what's going on. Bill's been introduced, a bill has been scheduled up for a hearing, things of that nature. So I'm going to run through a number of these bills. I think you've had some of this in your board packet. So, and I'll do it kind of in numerical order, House and then a Senate bill. So House Bill 2103 directs the Board of Pharmacy to classify xylazine as a Schedule IV controlled drug. Back in 2022, 2023, the Oregon Board of Pharmacy was looking to adopt a rule initially to classify xylazine as a Schedule I drug, which would prohibit veterinary use, period. Then they were going to have an allowance for any FDA-approved drug, which on the surface sounds good, except compounded drugs are not FDA approved, and xylazine often is compounded. So the concern with xylazine is really illicit use versus licit use. And that is xylazine is being seen on the streets. It comes in powder form, mostly from overseas. And law enforcement officials are finding it mixed with heroin, fentanyl, other narcotics, and contributing to deaths. So there is a concern. OVMA, we have a concern about that too, but we're also concerned about any restriction on the illicit or legal use of xylazine. FDA approved the drug in 1972 for veterinary use specifically. I'm going to try to adjust my camera here. Sorry about that. I didn't quite see that. And so our concern is any restriction. A number of states in the country have scheduled it as classified as a controlled drug. Our concern is that, hey, would it be impossible for veterinarians to access and use the drug if it's Schedule IV? No, but it becomes impractical. When we've reached out to veterinarians in large animal practice specifically, because that's where it most often is used, they need the drug when they need it right then. To have to check it out from a controlled drug, draw out what you need, that takes time, it's impractical. So we've met with the bill sponsor, and he is good about having an exemption for veterinary use. He's good about our recommended maybe amendments for exemption for pharmacists and veterinarians who would compound the drug, and also good about having an amendment that would allow, there's only one company now, Decra, that produces it, Rompen, and allows them to then distribute to Oregon without it being classified as a Schedule IV drug too. So, I mean, that's our hope. The reality is, will the bill come up for a hearing? We don't know. The sponsor is a minority party, so he's unsure if there will be a scheduled hearing. But at this time, he's very good with our recommended amendments to the bill. So this is always kind of a step in the process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. The other bill I want to talk about, there'll be others too, is House Bill 2167 that appropriates funds from the general fund to higher education to distribute money for the College of Veterinary Medicine at Oregon State, $10 million, and also $3.5 million for the Oregon Veterinary Diagnostic Lab. This was the very first bill that was heard this session back in January 22nd. Dean Tornquist submitted a report in favor of this, and OVMA, we certainly support this too. Because there's a budgetary impact or finance impact on this, it's automatically referred to Ways and Means, which it has been. So it's been moved out of committee, referred directly to Ways and Means, and we're going to sit and just monitor. There's not much we need to do and can do at this time. Budget Ways and Means Committee, they have a lot of requests. So we're looking at $13.5 million roughly out of a multi-billion-dollar budget. And some people ask, well, that should be a no-brainer. This should just happen. You know, the challenge with that, everybody else and their brother and their sister is also asking for money. And that's just the nature of the beast, and this is how the process works. So we'll continue to track this. As we start getting closer to mid-session, we probably will step up and take the lead from our lobbyists. When do we start contacting our legislators? When do we start contacting committee members on the Ways and Means Committee? So we still have some time to go with that. I'm going to go to House Bill 2679, which directs the Oregon Department of Agriculture to classify certain pesticides that contain neonicotinoids, I think I pronounced that correctly, as restricted use. I think there's been an ongoing concern in this country, but certainly in Europe for many years, about the health of honeybees and certain pesticides that could harm honeybees. Several states, including California and more recently Washington, have enacted laws to address this concern. Oregon looked at this about 2 or 3 sessions ago, but there was never any movement on that. Well, this bill would actually, because there are some neonicotinoids use in flea and tick products and veterinary use applications in large animal medicine, but also with livestock applications in human medicine, say for personal care products such as including lice treatments. There are some exemptions. We support the exemptions. We'll track this bill. It has not yet been scheduled for a hearing. House Bill 2744 would prohibit pet insurance policies from excluding pre-existing conditions from those policies. There's a Model Practice Act national bill or Model Act that a number of states, about 6 or 7 states now, have started to look at. Washington State more recently adopted this in 2023. This particular bill would take it one step further and would not allow any exclusions for pre-existing conditions. We met with the sponsor of the bill. We talked with him. His concern is that, hey, he's in the Portland area, Multnomah County, and Multnomah County being a very dog-oriented county, he says he has clients who have come to him, says, we have dogs, we've tried to get pet insurance for our dogs, but because of pre-existing conditions, we can't get it. So he recognizes that this is kind of maybe taking it a step further than other states. And that's one concern he has, is that that might be the limiting factor of this bill moving forward. We have some concerns. And really, the concern is if pre-existing conditions are excluded from all policies, will that drive up the cost of health care coverage, pet insurance? And what does that mean for consumers in our state? Or would that mean somebody might withdraw from the marketplace? That would be a concern. We have not taken a position on this. OVMA, we're still gathering information. I do have a meeting later today with people from Washington State who went through this process to learn more about that process. I've read things that, hey, this has helped settle the pet insurance laws up in that state. I want to find out more. What does that mean? And then we'll get back in touch with the sponsor of the bill. This bill also has not been scheduled for a hearing. Senate Bill 327, it would prohibit a veterinarian from requiring the owner of an animal treated by the veterinarian to surrender the animal because the patient or the client doesn't have the means to afford the care for services. Language in the bill also would prohibit the veterinarian clinic from holding the animal, retaining the animal until that payment has been rendered. In all 50 states, animals are considered property, classified as property, although we have animal neglect and abuse laws, so they're kind of a special property. But when an animal is brought to a veterinary practice and services are agreed upon, a lien is automatically attached. Same thing if we bring our car into being treated and cared for by an auto mechanic, a lien is actually attached automatically. So we've met with the staff of the legislator who is sponsoring this bill, and they raised the concern. A constituent reached out to them, says, hey, I felt pressured, or I believed I was being pressured by the veterinarian to relinquish my animal because I didn't have the means to pay for services. You know, what we don't know is we don't know, was it a cat or a dog? What was the extent of the concerns with the animal's condition? Was it a fracture? Was it going to be ongoing care for that animal? The client's concern was that, hey, the veterinarian treated the animal anyway after I agreed to surrender it, so why didn't he just give the animal back to me? Well, I mean, our concern is that these issues are a bit more complex than black and white. And I think you as veterinarians and technicians, you recognize that. So our concern with the bill is that it would interfere really with the important discussions that go on daily, weekly with veterinarians about spectrum of care, options for care. Sometimes those tough conversations do include relinquishment of an animal, and possibly if that animal can be helped, to place that animal in a home where somebody might have the means, especially if it's ongoing lifelong care. But also euthanasia sometimes is part of that discussion. So what we don't know is, with this bill, if adopted as language is intended, would it interrupt, and how would it might interfere and impact your daily discussions with your clients? We have learned with the particular staff, they're not in a rush to get this through, to move it, so it's not coming up for a hearing, as far as we believe, right away. Which is good. We continue to gather more information, and we're having conversations with some other individuals before we have a follow-up with the staff. Senate Bill 328, this one is actually sponsored by the same senator, and we have not had that conversation with staff. You know, often when we have these meetings, we have 15 minutes of time. So we couldn't get this in. We're looking to have a conversation with the staff on Senate Bill 328 that would prohibit animal shelters from euthanizing a dog or cat because of a lack of shelter space. There also is, there's an allowance if the animal is diseased, you can, but it doesn't talk about can you euthanize if necessary because of behavioral issues. We have some concerns with this. We've reached out to some shelters. We would want to talk with Dr. Lamb, certainly, and we have others in mind. We want to gather more information. Oregon State, we understand, has some concerns about this. I mean, not Oregon State, but Oregon Humane Society, but we haven't had the opportunity to talk with them yet about their concerns, to see if our concerns and theirs are in alignment. But we have talked with Green Hill and Eugene, and then also Humane Society of Oregon, Central Oregon, and Bend. And those shelters are concerned in the sense that they aren't euthanizing for space or for lack of space. We do understand in some areas outside rural areas, there may be some euthanasia going on. Again, this gets complex because there's maybe a space issue, but there's also maybe a capacity to care and provide care from that shelter. So we're learning more information. We'll have ongoing discussions and get back to, and hopefully to have a discussion with the sponsor of the bill, Senate Bill 328. Senate Bill 733.
Can I get a quick question about the last one?
Sure.
When they're talking about shelters, does this also apply to impound facilities in rural areas? Because the impound, like in our community, there is no humane society. There is a vet clinic who has an agreement to be the impound, but they literally have limited space.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Wallace. I think it's an important point. To be honest, I'll go back and look at that. I appreciate you recognizing it and mentioning that. I don't recall specifically, but it'll be easy enough for me just to pull that up and I can get an answer back to you and I can send it to Pete too, so he can share with the board. Does that help answer the question? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, so Senate Bill 733 would expand the definition of the term potentially dangerous dog for dog control purposes. Includes a dog that inflicts serious injury to or kills livestock. We've talked with the sponsor of the bill. It kind of came up interest of a former staff member of hers who no longer is with her, so she's trying to pick up the pieces and better understand it. But my understanding, either in Lynn or Benton County, an offending dog killed livestock. It was alpacas. And animal control was unsure of what steps they could take. Now, there is existing law, statutory, that allows counties some allowance and discretion to, you can euthanize an offending dog, but you also can have a requirement that the owner has to restrain the dog, build a fence, or surrender the dog to somebody else, move outside of the area instead of an automatic death sentence. Years ago, the dog was automatically put to death. Counties still have that option. Counties could supersede state law if they want to make it more restrictive. They can't lessen it though. So, but as we've looked at this, we've looked at the laws in Benton County, the ordinances in Lynn County. We don't see that it interrupts with the county's decision to have several options. So we generally are going to be good with this legislation. And I think the last one I want to mention is Senate Bill 976. It would allow non-veterinarians to practice equine dentistry and to perform pregnancy verification services on cattle. It stipulates that an individual must hold a degree or a certification in equine dentistry, doesn't spell out what that is, and that an individual must have received training to preg check cattle. It doesn't spell out what that is. The bill also notes that the Oregon Department of Agriculture may adopt rules that specify under what conditions individuals may perform these services. I mean, this reminds me a little bit of going back to 2019 when then Governor Kate Brown introduced legislation on behalf of the Oregon Veterinary Medical Examining Board to really remove the term agent from the Veterinary Practice Act and statute, which broadly seems to allow anybody to treat animals and practice veterinary medicine if you're a non-veterinarian. We've had a lot of back and forth on that at that time. The chair of the committee was not going to move the bill forward unless the parties involved, that would be the OVMB, the OVMA, and the ag industry, Cattlemen's Association, Farm Bureau, could come up with some kind of agreement or consensus. There was a lot of back and forth. We couldn't come to agreement, so the bill died. We suggested some language change. Cattlemen's Association didn't like it. The Veterinary Board said, we're not going to move forward with this. And now it's kind of come full circle where it's being introduced by a senator in Enterprise. And he is the vice chair of the committee where the bill will be, where we expect it to be heard at Senator Nash. And we have a meeting with him next Wednesday. And we have a follow-up with the chair of the committee, Chair Golden from Ashland too. So the big question is, should lay people, under what conditions, practice equine dentistry? Should they do preg checking? Contention back then on preg checking is that the Farm Bureau said that route breeders have been doing this as designated agent for a cattle producer for years. And actually that law predates my being born, so that goes back into the 50s. And the law has never changed. We've looked at it several times, the OVMB back in 2019, but it's a tough one to move and change. So there's going to be a lot of conversation on this and a lot of information. Our belief, OVMA, is that with dentistry is the practice of veterinary medicine, period. But we do know that tooth floaters are coming into the state. They've they've been working in Oregon for many years. We've talked with equine practitioners, other mixed animal practitioners, and concerns of access to prescription drugs and use for sedation, but also doing things other than filing the teeth. So if any other questions I can entertain, be glad to do that.
Thank you, Glenn, for presenting that material. I know that you all work very hard on compiling all that information, and it's a process for sure.
Dr. Lamb, it is a process. And so this too, so there are other bills that we think are out there. We know of one. It doesn't really affect us as much. It's in legislative concept form right now. And that would be about stray cats in shelters. That's been an ongoing concern for the last 2 or 3 years. There was a deadline, I think, of February 10th for legislative concepts for legal counsel, legislative counsel, to start the process and get that down so they can turn that in, review the laws and turn that into a bill. So we expect that one will come through. There may be others we're just not aware of. So I'll update Pete if we learn of other additional bills that will be introduced after this February 10th deadline.
Great, thank you. If there's any board members that have any questions about what Glenn specifically presented here today, I'm more than happy to open it up. Typically, this is a new process for us to have legislation presented. So I would just remind everybody that we won't be talking about specifics or direction, just questions to Glenn for clarity today.
And thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome, Glenn. We do really appreciate all of your work on that.
Thank you, Glenn.
Pete, did I miss anything on that topic, or is there any other comments or question that we need to follow up with?
I don't think so. I just wanted to extend our appreciation to Glenn for doing that. It's a great overview. And again, just really appreciate the partnership. Thanks, Glenn.
Great, thank you. Before we move down to item 8, which is the executive director report, I do see that we've had 2 more public members join. I would like to give an opportunity for them to introduce themselves, but I will remind everybody that public comment item is over at this time. So if you do have public comment, you'll need to notify the executive director for the next meeting. Erica, would you like to introduce yourself? And I know some people are experiencing technical difficulties, so maybe coming off mute. Oh, I believe Erica has joined us.
Hello, hi. I'm a veterinarian in the community, just wondering what was going on today. A little bit of snow day here, so I don't have anything additional to add. I'm just going to be observing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today, Erica. I didn't catch your last name.
My last name is Ackerman.
Ackerman. Nice for you to join us, and I'm glad the snow day was a benefit for you to be able to attend.
Thank you.
And I believe we have Bob Bulliard on as well. If you'd like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself. I will just remind that public comment session is over. If you do have a public comment, it would need to wait till next meeting.
Just observing.
Great.
No
Thank
comment.
you. Thank you for joining us today. All right, we'll move over to item 8, executive director report with Peter Burns. I will just remind everybody today, since we have some new attendees, that we're having some technical difficulties because people are working from alternative locations. So video, although we try to be on video, sometimes we have to go off to maximize audio. So please bear with us as we're working through those challenges today with the Snowmageddon.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Lamb. So board members, you have and it's in the public packet as well, available on our website. You have a copy of Executive Director's report. There's not a lot that's new in here. This is pretty much a follow-up from the last board meeting with some updated budget numbers, which still look strong. We're within our expenditure limits. The real update, I guess, from this, any real update I'd like to provide today isn't necessarily in our report, the written report today. So the written report stands as it usually does, with some, our inspection numbers, our license numbers, and those standard info. So if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them. But what I really want to talk about is legislative session is in full swing, and we, for good or for ill, we scheduled our February board, or our first meeting of the year for February this year instead of January. But every 2 years that falls within legislative session, where we have to go down and present, and it creates a perfect storm of chaos with everything we have to do for legislative session and preparing for the board meeting. But we got through it. We're doing well. As I stated earlier, Dr. Lamb and I went down to Salem, and she graciously joined me as I presented our budget to the Joint Ways and Means Subcommittee on Education. They review our budget for all the health-related licensing boards. They review that as part of a bill that goes through and then becomes the governor's budget, and then eventually is legislatively adopted and becomes the budget for the 25-27 biennium. So in short, our budget report included what we've been talking about for a very long time, our fee increase, which there were no surprises. I've been talking to legislators, associations, licensees, everyone about that for as long as I've been here. And that went through without any objection from the committee. So it still has to go through the voting process, but the committee was well aware of it, understood the reasoning for it, the justification, etc. The other item I presented was related to our expenditures, and we're asking to reallot some money in our budget, which we have, but we want to reallot that money to help with our DOJ expenses. We've had a great number of cases that have gone to hearing. We've been relying on the exceptional service we get from Joanna Tucker Davis, but she's so good, and therefore she costs a lot of money. So we have to reallot some of our funds to pay those fees. And however, I've also taken some steps to take some of the things off of Joanna's plate, things that I can do in terms of drafting notices and orders to help keep those costs low. So we're always conscious of our expenditures as well as our revenue, and those are the two big ticket items for this budget presentation. Dr. Lamb was down there to answer some of the more technical questions about the life of our licensees, veterinarians and vet techs. It was great to have her there. And then, as I shared earlier, we were able to walk around and talk to some legislators and just other people that are down there for legislative session. So the other update I'd like to share that's not in my report, because this just kind of happened, AAVSB will be having their board basics and beyond training in Kansas City in March, late March, and Dr. Katie Wallace, one of our esteemed board members, is going to be able to participate in that. And I'm very excited about that. It's a great training. We've had a number of board members go through there now, and I think everybody that goes through that really speaks to how well it informs them and prepares them for board work. I wish we could get everybody in there at the onset when they start into board work. If we can get them into that as soon as possible, it's really beneficial. So I'm excited Dr. Katie can join us, can join on that, and I will be there as part of the Executive Directors Summit, which is just a couple of days prior to the Board Basics and Beyond. They're kind of meshed together. And a reminder, AAVSB covers the cost of much of that. We pay a registration fee, but it's a good partnership, and it's a good, not a massive impact on our budget. So I'm always conscious of that as well. Those are my big updates. Everything else is kind of standard information that's presented in the report. But if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to take those.
Do any board members have any questions for Director Burns? Doesn't look like we have any questions, Director Burns. I do want to just thank you for all of your hard work on this, as well as the team. I know that this was not an easy month, compiling everything together, and it was a pretty big meeting to put together. So I just really appreciate the staff and your hard work moving this through so this meeting could be very efficient and worth the effort and the time and maximizing everything. And it looks like you're getting some claps from some of the board members as well up in their corners of their screens. So with that, we can move on to item 9, which is discussion and action items. We'll work through some of these. It looks like time is on our side right now. And so we'll work through some of these, and then we'll give a break probably midway through these for staff and board members to refill their coffee, stay warm, and make sure that they're staying safe with the snow. So I believe the first one is the CVT work group update with Director Burns.
Thank you, Dr. Lamb. So there's a brief update on the work of the work group. We were able to convene once in January. It's a very robust group, a lot of diverse perspective in there. And the first meeting was really just kind of setting topics and timelines. And there are a number of topics that are focused on the scope of practice for CVTs. And really, we just spent that first meeting kind of identifying the challenges, identifying the realities, and then identifying for some key topic areas to focus on. And then at the very end, we're starting to get into some potential solution that may or may not include rule language change. We are scheduled for our next meeting for March 5th. And that meeting will be a continuation of that discussion, but starting to get more into potential solution. So I think that we're making good progress. I'm just there representing the agency and kind of administering the work group, but our very own esteemed Natalie Mayer Williamson is the chair of that work group. So I do want to give her an opportunity if she has anything else to add, but I think we've made good progress in the first meeting, and we've got some, and so in between meetings, I get feedback that then feeds the next meeting. So there's always this progression. It's not like we have to start from scratch. And I really like that. So we have a very active group that shares a lot of information and keeps the ideas flowing. So that really helps. But Natalie, did you have anything else you wanted to share?
No, I think really Pete's the one that's chairing this. I'm just following his little tidbits that he puts out to me. But yeah, it's a learning curve for me. I've never done this before, so I'm very excited about that. And it definitely has a variety of different diverse techs and doctors involved, which will give us lots of different options to look into.
Thank you so much. And you are the driving force in that group. Your perspective and experience is invaluable. Any other questions on the CVT work group? We'll meet in March, and then at our April meeting, our in-person meeting, I'll have more updates for you then.
Director Burns, I'd just like to share in my appreciation for Natalie Mayer Williamson on that work group. I really feel like having a CVT leading that group and being actively involved is amazing. And I'm really appreciative that we have a CVT position on the board that can participate in those avenues to kind of tease out questions and comments and get a diverse group together like that. So thank you for working on that. It's really important work. And if we have no more questions about the CVT work group, I'm more than happy to punt it back to you for the VCPR work group update. Director Burns.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Dr. Lamb. And so just a quick overview of the VCPR work group, which really isn't so much a work group update anymore. It's just the VCPR topic. The work group has concluded their work. If necessary, we may, if we need to, if the board directs to, we may reconvene the work group to do more work, but they've made their recommendations. They've provided that documentation to us. Today in executive session, we're going to receive some legal advice on this topic from Joanna. And so for now, I'd like the board to consider that, then take a look at the recommendations from the work group, put those things together. As you can between now and April, just like the CVT work group is doing, let's kick around some ideas, some suggestions, some solutions. And then in April, when we're in our in-person meeting, we can come together and actually put put those solutions into play. And being in person, we can actually sit down, kind of round table this, and hopefully come up with some really significant and proper, take those recommendations and put them into proper action. And that, in April, that may be, rule change, policy change, anything, but taking those recommendations, taking the legal advice, and coming up with the proper fit. So this has been a topic that's been ongoing for quite some time. It's a big topic nationwide, involves VCPR and telemedicine. So it kind of gets unwieldy. So I think it's going to be really helpful if we can sit down in person and really talk about these things. But that's where we're at with it. I think we're going to get some substantial progress in April and then be able to wrap this up. But any other questions, comments, suggestions? That's the plan of attack for this topic.
Any board members with questions for Director Burns regarding the VCPR progress? Doesn't look like we have any questions at this time, Director Burns. Do you have anything additional on that?
Nope, that's it. I'm looking forward to April. And just in general, I'm looking forward to getting together in April. It's been a long, long time since we've had an in-person meeting. So reach out if you're coming into Portland. We'll reach out to you. We'll start to organize all the logistics for that. But that in-person meeting is always preferred. So I'm looking forward to getting back together with folks.
I'm also really glad we didn't do an in-person meeting today.
Oh, right. That would have been just completely
chaotic.
Portland will probably be flooded in April. We'll see. No, it's going to be good. Sorry to digress. On the next topic, rulemaking, I'm not sure if you want to take a break. It looks like we have quite a bit, and I know Ingrid's got a lot to present, but maybe I defer to you, Dr. Lamb and Ingrid, to see kind of how long that might take, or if you want to take a break first or get that done first, whatever you guys think.
Why don't we just take a 15-minute break and come back at 10, and that way people can, take care of themselves and reconnect with, any issues with the weather. Sound good?
Allison, I'm just doing a quick audio check. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, I can hear you great, but I'm muted.
And for a minute, I was like, oh, now I can't hear things. Okay, good.
Good.
Great.
Thank you for the sound check.
Okay, 11, 10 o'clock, we'll all reconvene back here. Thanks.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Thursday, February 13th at 10 a.m. We are in the public session of the Oregon Veterinary Medical Examining Board, and we are on item number 9, discussion and action items. 3, rulemaking update with OVMEB Inspector Ingrid Nye, if she'd like to talk to us about rulemaking.
Hi, can you all hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Okay, hopefully everybody can see the screen. I'll enlarge it a little bit. So I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. And also, this document is compiled just before board members receive their packets. So it is, at this point, it's about 2 weeks old. So there have been a couple changes, 1 or 2 things that have changed on this, and I'll just note that for the board as we go through. First of all, Director Burns was kind enough to give us a great update on the CPR work group changes. So there's not much else to say that hasn't already been said with that. For the potential late fees, that does remain on hold. And there's no no action on that at this point, as we would need that legislative approval. And my most recent understanding is that that we are potentially tabling that until after the fee increases that are already in the works go through. So that will remain on there, but at this point there's been no action. We will look at this in just a moment. We have a suggestion for creating rules requiring that facilities notify the board when they're closing and make appropriate arrangements for the disposition of patient records. And I will talk more about that when we actually get to that next item on the list. We have, at our previous meeting, clarifying language regarding requirement for licensee to provide written prescription to client upon request. When we looked at this back in December, and I have an error, I'm so sorry, I have an error on this, I'm noticing. This actually is not scheduled for public rulemaking. This is still a fact-finding. I have reached out to the Board of Pharmacy to get my questions answered about what requirements they have, if any. And I've also started gathering lists of other states that may have similar rules in their books to try to get back to them. So I expect a more full report on that at the next meeting in April. I apologize for the error there. There is no public rulemaking taking place. There is a public rulemaking hearing scheduled for February 21st, but this rule will not be discussed at that time because the board has not moved that forward yet. This next one is one where it was originally planned to be viewed at this meeting, and since then, in conversation with Dr. Lamb and Pete Burns, we determined that for now we're going to take a look at this during executive session, as we believe that we would benefit from some legal advice from Joanna on this one. So at this point, the plan would be to discuss with with Joanna, and then get some specific guidance, which we may do during public session, go back into public session and get some specific guidance for staff in terms of what we want to produce in regards to this. So that will probably come up more during executive session. Then this also is the renewal fee revision. Again, it is on hold because of the problems with needing the legislative approval to change fees. This next one here, 875-040-0010, this one is going to public rulemaking. This is correcting an error. Lots of really helpful input from Joanna on this, correcting an error. So that will be the one thing that is discussed there. There's also 2 minor changes. We changed, just as a reminder, we changed DVM to veterinarian. just to be consistent with the rest of the rule. And I believe we changed the word license to certificate to reflect the fact that a CET has a certificate rather than an actual license. Equine dentistry, no updates there. I want to try to, at least by mid-year, have an update for the board on this. It's just been a really busy start to 2025, but we do want to make sure that we are circling back and keeping an eye on that. And same with animal massage. Again, we'll hopefully by mid-year be having some sort of update for the board here, just staff time allowing. Any questions from anyone?
Any board members with any questions for Inspector Nye? Thank you, Inspector Nye. We appreciate you working through the weather implements today and a little bit of a cold, it sounds like, to get that information to us.
Of course, yeah, happy to do it. Okay, so we will switch over to, oh, sorry. You can.
No, I was just going to introduce it, but you can go ahead with your next topic, which is 4, the proposed rule change regarding record keeping.
Thank you so much. Sorry to jump ahead there. So this rule is being suggested by staff for the board to take a look at this. We have fielded, I fielded, Brooke has fielded a lot of calls from frustrated pet owners or frustrated clients that were not notified that the facility that they used to take their pet to or their animal to has closed down, and also then finding it impossible to actually come up with the records. And a lot of times when that happens, we can make suggestions. You know, like we can say, okay, well, this before it closed down, this was the managing veterinarian, so we can give you the contact information for that person. You can try to get them, but a lot of times it does result in a dead end. That either the managing vet says, "Oh, I had nothing to do with it," or "I'm locked out of that space, I can't access them myself," or whatever the case may be, or it's just, it can be completely unclear, you know, especially if someone closes their clinic and doesn't renew their license and just vanishes. Like, we have no way to track them down, and it causes a lot of frustration for the public. And we would, the board could consider, if they wanted to, coming up with some rules that might require that if a clinic is closed, that the clients are notified, and that also that records are properly disposed of. So what we did was come up with, down at the bottom here, just some proposed language, and both in this rule and then a reference to it within the unprofessional conduct, just referring back to the actual requirement. So I'll scroll up to the actual text of the rule, and I'm sorry, I'll make this a little bit bigger as well so everyone can see. Is that big enough there?
Can you go one more bigger, Ingrid?
Sure. How's that?
That's perfect. Thank you. And just a reminder to board members, you also have this in your packet if you need to see it in scrollable version. All right, so I'll open it up. Dr. Borzik, any questions or comments about the rule change proposal from staff?
No, I support it.
Thank you. Dr. Hamilton? Did we lose Dr. Hamilton? You know, sometimes there's technical issues on that side of the state. So we'll move on to Natalie, and we'll jump back to Dr. Hamilton in a minute.
I don't have anything to add. It looks good to me.
Thank you. Karen?
Yeah, this looks good to me.
Thank you. Dr. Wallace?
I don't know. Do we need some rule regarding somebody to contact for a year following closure in case? I see that it says managing veterinarians shall be responsible for ensuring all requirements of the rules are met, but do we need to have a timeline or to say, you know, that the board needs to be able to contact somebody for so long after closure in case certain things aren't met, or in case, because I can imagine if we closed our clinic, it would be very difficult to get all of the records dispensed. Clients' contact information changes all the time, and say that person all of a sudden decides they want their records and the facility is closed.
This is Joanna. I'm also wondering if you need to have some kind of caveat like the managing veterinarian at the time of the closure, because it would be very easy for someone to say, I'm not the managing veterinarian anymore, right? And then there's no
Right.
managing veterinarian because it's closed.
Yeah. That was what I was getting at. Just something to make sure there is a contact person for. I mean, we're supposed to have save records for 3 years, right? So do we need to be able to contact somebody for that long? Those are my questions.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. Brian Wadika?
I don't have anything at this point. It looks good.
Thank you. Dr. Hamilton? I think we have Dr. Hamilton audio right now. I can see that he's still on the screen. So if we added in the managing veterinarian at the time of closure to the rule, and then Dr. Wallace, did you have any, oh, sorry, I'm going to jump the gun. Director Burns, you have your hand up.
Oh, I do, but I can wait. I just have an idea, or really a question, but let's go through board members' reactions first, and then I can wait.
Okay. Dr. Wallace, I just wanted to punt it back to you to see, if you had a suggestion about the time frame.
I don't. I was just curious. I mean, in other places we're required to keep them for 3 years. Does the same thing apply? Is that a discrepancy in our rules if we don't make that apply? And do we need to say we need to be able to contact this person, even if they don't maintain a license? Or
Do you think we could capture it as the managing veterinarian at the time of closure shall be responsible for ensuring all the requirements of this rule and other rules are met? Because then it implies the 3-year. Joanna, would that hold it or not? I guess if they become unlicensed.
I would say that was exactly what I was going to say. If they become unlicensed, how do we keep them? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult because the facility will no longer be under your jurisdiction when they close.
Right.
I guess my other thought quickly was, what do other states do? And I'm assuming Ingrid has looked at that.
Do you think if we said the managing veterinarian at the time of closure shall be responsible for ensuring requirements of all rules are met, just kind of covers that base in case somebody is still actively practicing and has access to the record? It gives us legal authority, but doesn't necessarily mean that we can enforce if it's enforceable.
Can you repeat that so I can add it to the?
Yeah, it's basically the requirements of all rules are met. Or we could even say the rules of the Veterinary Practice Act are met.
Okay.
Just so it creates a broader scope of the entire Practice Act. So if that number 3-year changes at any time. Any other board members have comments about the changes or the question?
If I may help. I know I'm not part of the board, but if I may help, other states do have a form that you have to fill out when you're going to close a facility. And within that form, they require you to list where the patient records will be maintained.
Thank you for the record. That was Mimi McCormick speaking. Board members, is that helpful information? Would there be any other suggested changes to these rules? Any other discussion? If so, feel free to unmute yourself. Director Burns?
Thanks, Dr. Lamb. Yes, I just had a couple ideas or a couple of questions, I guess. So I used to work at the mortuary board, and they have this rule that's, it works for them, and I'm curious if it would work for veterinary in the veterinary field. When they have very strict rules because their records are required forever, and it's pretty ambiguous what forever really is, but and so they have some really strict rules around closures. They have to notify us, and they have to tell us where the records are going to be transferred to another licensed facility. That's pretty onerous, but I'm just curious, is that something that would even be practical in the veterinary field? Thoughts?
Director Burns, can you allude to how much time that required from staff to be participating in that process? Was it overwhelming or it seemed manageable?
We monitored the the notification. We documented that. It would occasionally lead to some pretty substantial investigations if it was determined those records weren't transferred. So there was an impact on agency resources. The other thing is, and I think we need to go back and make sure we're reviewing our records retention requirements accurately, but the mortuary board essentially does that because they have these rules that you have to keep these records in perpetuity. So it's a little bit of a different reality there. But with these records, I think it is good to try to have some kind of traceability for them for the duration of, as long as licensees are supposed to be holding on to them. But I don't know if that's probably not the right solution for the veterinary field. But there could, and this might be something where we may not, if we're not writing some specific rules, maybe we're providing some best practice guidance. Dr. McCormick, I appreciate your input on the other states. I'm going to reach out to AAVSB with a question out to other jurisdictions, and then maybe get a copy of what that form looks like, and we could at least have a look at that and start from there. But just questions. This is an interesting topic.
Board members, I'll go back around the room. Mr. Brian Whittica.
I don't really have anything at this point. Yeah.
Feelings about moving forward with these rules as they stand right now, or postponing getting more information? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm fine with them as they are.
Okay. Dr. Wallace.
I think adding that period of 3 years makes it more clarified, in my opinion.
Where would you like to add the 3 years? Is it appropriate in C, or do you want to add it to D as well?
No, C is fine.
Okay.
But I guess another, do we need to have a requirement that the managing veterinarian keep updated information with the board? Because say they're no longer licensed, or they move away, or they die. I mean, worst case scenario, right?
This is Joanna. Like, to the extent that you're a licensee, I think you have a rule that already requires updated information. But I don't know what the time frame on that is for all your licensees. Maybe, and most boards do, maybe don't.
If I understand the question, Dr. Wallace, was it post like if somebody like retired and then after the retirement, is there any obligation or need or ability to require updating information at that time? Joanna, does that clarify the question a little bit?
Right. And then that would be a question of whether, like, you do have a retired license. So that would just be, I mean, unfortunately, you only have so much authority over people who are, not your licensees at all.
Ms. Karen Pate?
I don't have anything additional. I think this is okay the way it is.
Okay. And moving forward with where we're at right now, or?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Natalie Mayer Williamson?
I like what we have and I'm okay to move forward.
Okay. Dr. Hamilton? I feel like I can hear sound trying to come through, Dr. Hamilton. Dr. Borzek?
I'm comfortable moving forward here with what's written.
Okay. Inspector Nye, could you just scroll down to the other rule just so we can see the last little bit, just to make sure that everybody also is okay with that? No questions about that. If any board members have any questions about what wasn't on the screen and what we scrolled down to, feel free to unmute themselves. Sounds like we're looking like we're ready for a vote. Is that what would be the next step, Inspector Nye?
That's correct. So at this point, the board could move this to public rulemaking.
Do I have a motion for somebody to move for public rulemaking for, and I apologize, I don't have both the rules on the screen, 875 dash, I don't know why I don't have them both on my screen at the same place.
It is 875 dash 010 dash 0031 and 875 dash 011 dash 0010.
I'm sorry, can you repeat those, Ingrid? I was trying to get them up in my iPad and write at the same time.
No problem. It's OAR 875 dash 010 dash 0031.
All right.
And OAR 75 dash 011 dash 0010.
All right. So do I have a motion to move into public rulemaking on 875 dash 010 dash 0031 and 875 dash 011 dash 0010 in regards to rule change for facility closures?
I so move.
Dr. Borzek moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Natalie Mayer Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Dr. Borzek?
Aye.
Dr. Hamilton? Natalie Mayer Williamson?
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Katie Wallace?
Aye.
Mr. Brian Wadika?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Motion passes to go into rulemaking. Inspector Nye, did you need anything else regarding that topic?
I do not. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I did just want to take an opportunity. It looks like we had another public member join. I do want to just remind that the public session section for public comment has closed, but I would like to give an opportunity for the public member to introduce themselves. If Madeline Burke would like to unmute and introduce themselves to us, that would be great. Or we understand that technical difficulties are somewhat hard today too, so we understand if you can't unmute.
Hi, I'm Dr. Madeline Burke. I'm a relatively new member in Oregon. I moved here in 2022 to be a resident with a lab animal medicine residency at the Oregon National Primate Research Center associated with OHSU. But yeah, this is my first time sitting in on a meeting.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you, Dr. Burke, and thank you for joining us. Hopefully the weather is treating you well today, and maybe that was your incentive to join us.
I did still make it on campus to work today.
Great. All right. Well, we're moving on to item 9, discussion and action item number 5. And this is a report to the board regarding past rule change. And this is again with Inspector Ingrid Nye.
Thank you so much once again. So at the previous board meeting, there was a question raised by the board about whether or not we ever had limitations on how many facilities a single managing veterinarian could oversee, and also whether or not there were any geographic limitations on how far-flung those could be. So I put together just a report digging back through the old rules and the rule changes for the board, just explaining that, and unfortunately, the record from the meeting is the minutes from the meeting are the kind of relevant meetings are very scanty. So some of it remains a little bit of a mystery in terms of why it was changed. But what I can tell the board is that when the registration of veterinary facilities rules were first adopted back in January 2015, there was subsections that stated that that added a limitation of 4 separate facilities per managing veterinarian. And then of those 4 facilities, no more than 2 of them could be more than 100 miles apart. And then also there was a requirement that the managing veterinarian be physically present at each of their facilities at least 5 days out of any 30-day period and available to provide continuous oversight to all facilities. So you see those there as F and G. The board in May of 2016 filed a temporary rule change and then a permanent rule then shortly thereafter that removed those 2 requirements. There was a committee called the Facility Licensing Rule Advisory Committee that was convened, and I believe, as far as I can tell, they met 1 time, and their recommendation to the board was to remove those that letter F and letter G. The minutes from that single meeting of that committee basically just say that the meeting commenced and that this is the recommendation that they made to the board and that the meeting ended. So if there was any discussion about why, unfortunately, we don't have access to that. But the board did go ahead and adopt the recommendations of that committee, and then that became the temporary rule change, and then that became permanent, and those 2 requirements were removed from the Veterinary Practice Act. Any questions on that?
Thank you, Ingrid, for looking that up. I do just kind of want to put a quick plug in here because it was something that I learned that when you're looking through the Veterinary Practice Act, there's live links on the bottom to see when rules have changed. In case people do need to look at the history of anything, that is also a very useful resource. But I will open it up to board members if they have any questions in regards to Inspector Nye's past rule change on managing veterinarian limitations. I'll start with Dr. Hamilton.
No questions.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Natalie Mayer Williamson?
No questions.
Thank you. Ms. Karen Pate?
No questions.
Dr. Katie Wallace?
No questions.
Mr. Brian Wadika?
No questions.
Dr. Reagan Borzak?
No questions.
Inspector Nye, was there anything additional that you needed on this topic today?
There is not. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll move on to discussion and action item 9. And this is, 6, applicants for OVMEB licensing administration, Woodbrook Walker. Yeah, we have no public documents, and the applicants will be reviewed in executive session. Great, thank you for that update. I believe the next item 7 is yours as well, the CET exam update with licensing administrator Brooke Walker. This is just a quick update on the new CET exam that was approved at the last board meeting. Staff has been working on developing randomized versions using Microsoft Forms. We still have a few final adjustments to make, but the test should be live within the next week or so. Pete, I'm not sure if you added anything to add there, but.
Thank you, Brooke. Just, we do have a few, I don't know, how many applicants do we have that are looking to take that? I think we got a couple waiting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and yeah, thanks to everyone who had a hand in making that and testing it and running it. We've updated the process a little bit. It's a little bit more online. It's randomized, as we talked about. So again, just kind of modernizing the process, and I think that's good for the staff. It's good for our licensees or our applicants. So appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, everybody that worked so hard on that. I feel like the end product, the finished product is, although maybe I haven't seen the final, it's been the close to final product and it looks really nice. So thank you for working hard on that. Brooke, did you have anything additional on that one? No, that's everything. Just thank you everyone for your help on that. Great, thank you. And I believe we've already covered the next one, which is discussion and action item 8, which is the legislative bill review, unless there was something additional from Director Burns. I think this was a placeholder too.
Correct, yeah. Mr. Kolb with OBMA covered that very, very well for us. So I just forgot to remove that from the agenda as he stepped in to cover that. So thank you. Yeah, there's nothing further needed on that. Great.
Well, we're down to item number 10, which is announcing our next board meeting will be April 10th and 11th. This will be an in-person meeting. The details of location will follow. Hopefully we will not be experiencing snow in April, and hopefully Pete is not forecasting flooding, and it will be not weather issues getting to whatever location is chosen. If there's nothing else in the public session right now that I'm forgetting, Director Burns, anything else that I'm forgetting?
I think we're good.
No? Okay.
Yep.
All right, then I will announce that it's 10:32 on Thursday, February 13th. This concludes our public session. We are now moving into executive session. The Oregon Veterinary Medical Examining Board will now go into executive session pursuant ORS 192.6602L, ORS 192.6602 little f, ORS 192.6602 little h, and 676.1751 concerning discipline, litigation, and exempt public records. Representatives of the news media and designated staff will be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision will be made in executive session, and at the end of executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. I appreciate everybody joining us today, especially the public members. It's always great to hear from our public, as well as some representatives from organizations that help to keep the veterinary profession informed. So I will see the board members and staff in executive session, and thank you to the public members today.